So in a previous video, I had a look at this camera, which comes with a massive full frame sensor. And this is the Toptech Sky-Eye 24AC camera. It comes with a Sony sensor called the IMX410, which is the same as is in ZW ASI 2400 MC Pro cameras. The 2400 MC Pro costs around 3,000 US dollars. This one costs around 2,400 US dollars, so it's not cheap, but it's a good $600 cheaper than the ZW for pretty much the same thing, effectively. With, I would say, the most major difference being that you cannot use this with the ZW ASI air control system, because obviously this is not a ZW astrophotography cooled camera. So this is from the brand Toptech, and I've done an initial analysis of it in a previous video. I will put the link up above and down in the description. So we looked at, of course, the sensor size with the insane field of view that we can get with this. We looked at the pixel size, which with those huge, incredibly huge pixels, I think the size is roughly the side of a pixel is 6 micrometers. And we looked at the cooling performance, which was better than specifications. And we looked at the read noise, which also was better than specifications. So this camera, it seems, would be the best match is with a long focal length telescope due to its very large pixels if you want to get proper sampling. But you can also use it vastly undersampled. And one of the advantages of using it vastly undersampled is if you're in a dark area or you're using very narrow narrowband filters, then the read noise can become significant compared to the shot noise, in which case those large pixels help having more photons within each pixel, so you overcome the read noise more readily. Also, the drawback of this camera, I mean, I wouldn't call it a drawback, but a specificity of this camera with this sensor, and it's the same thing for the ASI 2400 MC Pro, it only comes in a color version. So there is no monochrome version of that sensor, as far as I know, that is built by Sony, by the way. And therefore, because Sony doesn't make a monochrome version of the sensor, there is no hope at this stage for a monochrome version of this camera, which is unfortunate because it seems to be performing quite well from my tests. Now, while I was saying that this is great for longer focal length, like Ritchey Chrétien telescopes or larger refractors, for instance, or any other such telescopes that can support up to full frame, the only telescope that I have on hand that supports this insanely large sensor is my Red Cat 51, which is that tiny refractor telescope with a 250 millimeters focal length. So we're going to be very, very undersampled, but you know, I did it anyway. And I pointed the telescope with this camera towards the Eagle Nebula to see what we get, and I have the results. Also, I took, of course, some dark frames to see whether this camera, which is claimed as being amp glow free, really is amp glow free. So let's have a look at those results. Okay, you should be able to see my screen, and I'm going to start with dark frames. So this is a dark frame with the camera at gain 100, which is the lowest gain available, and with the high conversion gain enabled. So we have very low read noise at the same time, which is absolutely great. And this is what we get. And it looks like a very amp glow free frame. There is something though that I noticed while I was taking the frame in Nina. It looked to me like the right hand side of the frame was actually brighter slightly than the left hand side of the frame. So I want to quickly check that by just taking some previews there. We can preview a band of the dark frame here, try to do something similar on the right hand side and have a look at the statistics. And this is the mean and median for the left hand side at 256, and on the right hand side, here we go, we have 257, maybe even 8 as the mean. That's not significant, so it's really, I think we can classify this as amp glow free. Just to be safe, I also took a 300 seconds dark frame with the low conversion gain mode. This is what we see, and we can, again, in Nina, it looked as if the left-hand side was much less bright than the right-hand side, but again, it seems to be like more of an optical, or let's say a stretching issue than otherwise. Let's try again with our method of taking one band or one sliver of the frame on the left and on the right. Then we can have a quick look at the statistics. So this is on the left, we have mean 258, median 256. And on the right hand side, both of them go to 260. So there is a very tiny increase indeed of brightness on the right hand side of the frame compared to the left hand side of the frame. That seems to be more significant in the low conversion gain modes. But you know, you look at this and you're like, no, there's no amp glow. And in my imaging that I did on the Eagle Nebula, my calibration frames were only flat frames and base frames. I did not use dark frames. I have the reason why I don't use dark frames in another video. I'll put the link up above and down in the description if you're interested, but you'll see those results without dark frames. Okay, now the main worry that I had, and that most people in the comments of the last video had, was about the sampling of that telescope with this camera. So we get huge sensor, that means huge field of view. We get huge pixels, that means low resolution effectively, especially when paired with a small 250 millimeter refractor, the RedCat 51. And looking at astronomy tools, we can see this is the field of view we can expect. So in the single frame, we can have M16, we can have whatever that is, we can have M17. There is so much field of view in there, it's not even funny. And I kind of love that because I'm not a big fan of doing mosaics with my equipment, like taking frame of the sky here and then a frame nearby and then another frame nearby and then another frame nearby. I need to put them together. The signal to noise ratio is not great because I have to spend 4 times more time on each, but it doesn't, add up to the signal to noise ratio of the overall image. When you have such a huge sensor, unless you have specific targets in mind, you don't need to do mosaics. Also, whenever I see a mosaic, I'm wondering, like, are you actually going to zoom into that? Probably not, which makes like the interest of a mosaic lower, in my opinion. So that's one of the things I really like with full frame sensors paired with small-ish refractors. It's the huge field of view. But the problem is the sampling. The resolution is roughly 4.9 or 5 arc seconds per pixel. That is really, really bad. But as you know, if you watch the channel, I don't really care about undersampling because it just means we're not capturing as much detail as is available. But the biggest symptom, and that's where things can be problematic with undersampling, is that you can get very blocky stars. And that can be very not good looking at all on your image, even from a distance. Fortunately, when you image, you can do what we call dithering in between subframes. So you take, let's say, a 5-minute subframe, and then you have a process that moves the telescope a tiny bit so that the target is now centered on another pixel. And you can do that every frame, and in the end, you can use those small differences to extrapolate what doubling the resolution of the image would look like via a process called drizzling. And I did that for my images with this camera and this tiny telescope to see what would be the result with, the vanilla standard kind of stacking, no drizzling, and also the result with the drizzling, and we'll have a look now. Before we do that, let me know what you think the results will look like in the comments. Will I have very blocky stars even with drizzle? Am I lost cause because of this crazy 5 arc seconds per pixel resolution? Let me know down below. No cheating. And while you're going there, you may want to take 1 second to click on that like button. It really helps the channel out. And if you like this kind of review and videos about astrophotography in general, you may consider subscribing to the channel, in which case, welcome to the channel. If you're feeling particularly grandiose today and you're planning on buying anything from even Amazon or Agena Astro or First Light Optics, High Point Scientific, astroshop.eu, etc., if you do so after clicking the links that I have down in the description, it helps me out at no cost to you. And if you're feeling particularly generous today and you want to support me even more directly, you can join my Patreon as a member, link down in the description, or the channel as member using the join button next to the subscribe button. It is thanks to you guys, my Patreon supporters and channel members, that this channel keeps going and that I keep going as well. So as always, thank you so much for your generosity and thank you for supporting the channel. Anyway, let's keep going and let's have a look at the results. Okay, so now we are looking at an individual subframe on the Eagle Nebula. So this was taken with the RedCat 51 telescope. It was mounted on my UMI 17 Lite mount. It was guided via off-axis guider, and I had a 48 millimeter / 2-inch H-alpha oxygen 3 filter in front of the camera sensor. And this is the result. So we can see the image from far away looks actually pretty insane. You have the Eagle Nebula, that tiny thing in the middle. You have the Omega Nebula there. You have this unnamed object there that I wish had a name because I want to take an image of that next. And you have some vignetting on the image. This is likely from the M48 filter that's right in front of the sensor, potentially as well from the adapters that come with the camera that are effectively M54 to M48. But look at this insane field of view, completely incredible. And this is, by the way, uncalibrated, no nothing on this image. This is the raw output of a 5 minutes exposure with this H-alpha oxygen 3 filter and this camera. And yeah, we can zoom in and you can see that indeed, without, with the raw images, yeah, you would think, okay, this camera is a very bad match for the RedCat 51, which in a very real way, it's true. It's not a good match for the RedCat 51, but when you look at the field of view, suddenly it becomes an awesome match for the RedCat 51 if you're not zooming in too much. So this blockiness, how would it look like in the final integrated or stacked frame, and how will it look like after drizzling? Haha, vote now on your phones. I want to also give a little shout out to the RedCat 51 for doing a really great job across the full frame sensor. So the center stars are pretty good. And if I go to the right hand side of the image, to the top right of the image, the star shapes are still honestly really good. Bottom right, the star shapes are still really good. Bottom left, they start to be slightly elongated, but come on, this is also really good. And top left, same story. This is incredible. It's a really cracking little telescope. Highly recommended. Again, if you're buying this camera or that telescope or anything, use my links down in the description. Anyway, this gives me high hopes for the image that we are getting here, in spite of the blocky stars. Okay, next step, let's have a look at the integrated image, so the stacked image, without any drizzling. And this is how it looks like. We have 73 frames of 5 minutes exposure on the Eagle Nebula via this setup that are stacked. Again, I am absolutely in awe of this field of view and in awe of the image that we are getting. This is from my rooftop balcony in Tokyo, Japan, one of the most light polluted cities on the planet. So this is pretty cool, guys. And of course, it's not just the camera. The camera does have its part to play. It's the telescope, it's the mount, it's the tracking, and it is my mad skills. But it's honestly incredible. We have the Eagle Nebula, we have whatever that is, and I don't know why it doesn't have a name. And then we have the Omega Nebula there. We've eaten up a chunk of the Milky Way, and I love that. I absolutely love this. So let's zoom into the stars, and the stars, they still look blocky. They don't look as bad as they were in the initial kind of single frame. But what's very interesting as well is that the more we go like to the sides, the more we'll start seeing like those very red sides on the stars. The stars become like less beautiful. If you're a pixel peeper, this result is probably going to be disappointing, right? But to be honest, I expected much, much worse from this resolution of 5 arcseconds per pixel. I mean, I would be perfectly fine with processing and displaying this image on Astrobin and other forums. perfectly fine. And by the way, there's no processing yet. There's only background extraction. I haven't done anything to this image. This is the raw output and it's insane. I absolutely love this. Okay, so now we've looked at how the image looks like. Again, come on, this thing, someone give it a name, please. Anyway, yes, I'm getting sidetracked. I'm so sorry about that. Yes, we've looked at the stack without any drizzling. Let's have a look at how it looks like with drizzling, and drum roll. What? Yes, I haven't done the background extraction yet. This is the raw output without background extraction, and I'm going to do a quick dynamic crop and the background extraction. Let me reapply the auto stretch, and this is the drizzled image. Okay, for now we're zoomed out, so there's no surprise that it looks very much like the undrizzled image, but we have 4 times the resolution. We went from 24 megapixels to 96 megapixels, I guess. And this is the result. Let's zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. Look at those stars. What do you think of those stars? They look perfectly fine, don't they? Those stars, they're fine. They're not a problem at all. And we can go to any part of the image, even when the star shapes are like slightly elongated, and they're fine as well here. They're fine all over the place. I'm going to go to the top left and bottom left, which are the worst star shapes, and you can see they look fine despite the massive undersampling that we were suffering from. With the drizzling, it's perfectly okay, which is why, I mean, I'll have to return this camera because it's on loan to me from TopeTech. I will have to give it back to them, which is a bit disappointing because I absolutely love the combo of this Red Cat 51 with a full frame camera. Would it be better with a 6200 MC Pro or the Sky Eye 62 AC, I think, from TopeTech? Absolutely, but those cost like what, $2,000 more? I don't even know how much they cost, but around 4,000 something US dollars. It's just not the same scale, not the same. So this is, like, as far as I know, the budgetest cooled astrophotography sensor camera that I know of. And we get such an insane result even with this like crazy undersampling. But let's keep going with the processing because I want to show you how it looks like, you know, throughout the processing with this image. So the next step is to see what happened with blur exterminator, right? I set blur exterminator in a way that would not sharpen the stars too much because despite not being blocky, we have some very tiny stars all over the field of view, which absolutely makes sense. So this is with blur exterminator, so we have slightly more details in the nebulae all across, so before and after. Look at how well the star shapes are fixed, by the way. We're getting an amazing image already. Then I can run some noise exterminator. So this is like with noise exterminator applied, so before and after. A noise exterminator is having so much fun with this image. Honestly, I still can't believe the field of view. Sorry, I'm droning on. I have to keep focused. So next step was to stretch the image. So I stretched the image via scripts and it looks pretty nice. And now I can do my standard narrowband HOO processing. So first I can remove the stars. Oh my word, it looks even better starless. How amazing is this? There's a lot of green over the place, but don't worry, we're gonna do something about it. Then I did some HDR multi-scale transform there, so we get the core of the nebula more visible, right? Before and after. And after that, we're playing with the colors using the excellent narrowband normalization script from Bill Blanchon. This is what the initial colors give us, which is a bit weird, but don't worry, we can do a lot of curve transformations to have fun with those colors, bring back that piercing red, that piercing blue all over the place. I want to crop a bit the image because the side on the left was not as good as the rest. You know, play with the saturation, play with the contrast. Just all of those are curve adjustments. And look at the image that we are getting. Isn't that a beauty? This is from Tokyo, guys. Tokyo, Japan. 5 hours of data. This image. How incredible is this? And now I need to place back the stars so I can finally do the final reveal of the image. And this is this thing here. I put back the stars in. I didn't need to do any star reduction or anything like that. This is basically the final result with just 5 hours of data, roughly, I think 73 times 5, yeah, whatever, 5 hours of data, a bit more. And yeah, this is insane. The field of view is excellent. And, you know, if you're going to pair this with a small refractor, then yeah, you will absolutely have to dither a lot by a lot of pixels. And you'll have to drizzle, absolutely. And if you want full frame for a small refractor, and you have the budget for it, this is not the camera that you want. You want the Sky-Eye 62 AC or the ZW version of that with the smaller pixels. But if you're on a budget, even with a small refractor, this gives incredible results. And of course, with a Richer Chrétien telescope or with an Edge HD telescope, I don't know if they support full frame, or with large refractors like 107 millimeters aperture f7 or more, then this becomes also a very, very good proposition, even in terms of sampling. And let me zoom into that image. Look at those details. This is insane. I'm having so much fun. And you can zoom in all over the place and see, I mean, yeah, it's not perfect, but see all of the information. And again, this thing, I want to take a more detailed picture of that. That's my next target when the sky is clear. It's the rainy season here, but oh wow. Again, look at that image. That is incredible. What are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comments. Like the video. It only takes a second and really helps the channel out. If you like this kind of video, this kind of images, you may consider subscribing to the channel. And again, if you're planning on buying anything, if you do so after clicking the links that I have in the description below, it helps me out at no cost to you. And my Patreon supporters, my channel members, thank you so much for your support. Because this video is more than 20 minutes long, I will have credits with my members and Patreon's names in there. And of course, some of my Patreon ranks have access to my videos early and without ads. But anyway, looking forward to your comments. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. Don't forget, whenever you can, to look up at the stars, and I'll see you next time.